Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to What Do You Say Anime. I am your host, Peter. On today's episode, we will be doing a little get to know you with the mainstays from Watch Club, consisting of explaining our grading scales, like why Perfect Blue is a 10, why Kat thinks Nanbaka is an 8 and we all think it's a 4, and why we all agree The Girl Who Left Through Time is the most 8 out of 10 anime ever created. We will also be talking about how our tastes and how we view anime has changed over the years. And last but not least, we also like to keep each other on our toes. So at the end portion, we will be doing questions from each other with no knowledge of what it entails. Joining me today, we have Pat, Miles, Kat, Johnny, and Jay. Gentlemen, thank you all for joining. I hope you all came prepared to give your reasonings on your grading scales. So let's jump into the bottom of the barrel first. We're going to start off with how each person defines their grading scales if they do, and our first tier of ratings of shows in the 1 to 3 rating bracket. Miles, take it away.
Yeah, so generally, a consistent theme you're going to find for my rankings. This is all very vibes based. I watch something and I go like, I think this is this because I liked it this much. So for something to be in this like trash tier, right? This 1 through 3, I have to hate it at like a personal level. It has to have offended me in some way or be something that is like against my personal way that I view the world, or just, I don't know, make me angry. And so my quintessential trash tier anime is Rascal Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl. Solid 2 out of 10. Absolutely freaking hate it. It wastes the audience's time. It betrays you for caring about the characters. It erases all prior mattering from the season before, and I fucking hate it. It's bad. It made me angry. I was angry for days after, but like not in a good way, in like a bad way, where I was like, why did I watch this?
There's a good way to be angry?
Yeah, we'll see when I get to 10. Um, um, this might be a controversial pick. Perhaps some people will be talking about this in their 10 section, but for me, no, fuck this movie. I hate it. I fucking hate what it did. It is all of my least favorite tropes. It gets science wrong, which annoys me. It just does so many dumb, bad things. And if you cared, it made fun of you. So you should feel bad for caring. Anyways, that's mine.
So you didn't have a 1 or a 3?
So I do. Oh, so like, are we doing each number? I thought.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that's then. Good thing I started with 2 out of 10, like anyone would. And this give kill me. Um, I guess as a side note, my quintessential 1 is my only one, which is a Remo. If you've listened to the episode, you know that I have given it a 1 for being what I can only describe as pro grooming. Like, not only is there like maybe some incest grooming going on in it, but like it's actively pro it, and like that's the message of the anime, in my opinion. My quintessential 3 out of 10 is Fate Apocrypha, which I think is just a garbage. They were like, what if we intentionally made our main character a blank slate? Wouldn't that be funny if we lampshaded how boring he is? No, it wouldn't. It would be dumb. You're dumb for doing that, whoever made that show. I hated it. It was stupid. Don't intentionally make your characters boring. That's a terrible idea. Um, so those are my 1 through 3 in the very intelligent order of 2, 1, 3, as anyone would do. I believe Kat is up next. Kat, what are your examples?
My skill is also more, instead of vibes, it's more like how it leaves me feeling. Well, I guess that's vibes. But
It's
like
literally fast.
more like when I think about it after watching it, how did the entire show make me feel rather than just like how I feel watching it, I guess you could say.
And you
Um,
vibe with it, maybe?
damn it.
I had a feeling it was
Uh,
like that.
but the main, so that's how like I go between like top 5 and bottom 5. When it goes into like the actual numbers, I basically look at what shows I have in that category, and I kind of say what show I liked more than this, or what show is kind of like middling in this, and I basically try and base that off of where certain shows are. So for me, uh, perfect one for me would be Aromanga Sensei. It's very well made, but it's got all the things that I hate about like anime. It's everything that makes me be ashamed to be an anime fan because like it's the quintessential thing that people point to like you like this shit and it's like I like I don't claim that I will trash that at every moment of my at every moment of my life. Handshakers is my toot pick because Handshakers is just bad. Like it also has incest in it, kind of like Aramanga Sensei and like Miles said, Oriemo, which is also a one for me. But the thing about it is it's weirdly quirky. There's this one scene in Handshakers where just three people just all got broken arms in the same moment, which is the only redeeming quality about that show, but it's just enough to push it above the two incest shows I have at once. And three, I think a perfect three for me is In Another World with My Smartphone. That is one of the blandest shows that I've ever seen. Because like Miles said, main character is a blank slate, but the thing about it, every other character is also a blank slate around them. I think if I watched Flight Apocrypha and I felt like Miles did, I probably would have given it a five. Mainly because In Another World with My Smartphone is taking up the three slot in that category. So Fate Apocrypha would have to be laughably bad for me to put it there. But yeah, Johnny, you're up next.
So for me, the thing is with anime, and I think I'll get to this like in my what has changed, is that like I think I'm at the point where I would never watch an anime that's a one all the way through. So it's like I don't have a single show rated at a one because I don't rate shows that I haven't finished. So I guess like if you want me to like give an answer on like what my one is, I guess, and it's like, and I'm sorry, P, but it's like whatever that show that you gave me a Secret Santa, it was like Yamada Kun's first time or whatever.
I love. Oh man,
That-
you don't like that show? Oh
Dude,
man.
to be fair, I watched that while I had COVID on 3 times speed while feeling absolutely miserable. So maybe that had to do with it.
It's a
But
beautiful love story. How dare
I
you?
just I I had such a bad headache the whole time watching that. So just because of that, that's a one for two. For two, honestly, there's not much of a difference between a one and two. The only difference is how I felt that day. So for a two, I have a if her flag breaks. Like if it wasn't for Haz, it would probably be a three. But just because Haz is the person that made me watch it, it's a two. So yeah, that's basically how I feel. And for three, it's weird because I don't have a three either. It's like I don't finish shows that are bad. So I guess I'll just give a four, which I guess actually no, I'll leave it four when we do four to
If you
six.
don't have a
Then
three,
yeah,
it's
so
all right.
I don't have a three. I don't watch trash. I'm sorry.
That true?
He gave a Remo
Pat,
a
do we
5, I
want
believe.
to? No, Remo's for later.
We
Yeah.
Somehow.
We're gonna pass it on to Pat.
Thank you, Johnny. Yeah, so I also like Johnny, I tend to really drop shows or just never acknowledge that I watched the first episode of a show that I really don't like. So for me, I don't have any ones actually in my grading scale because to me that has to be so offensively bad, not only visually but also storytelling wise or anything really. It has to be bad in pretty much every category to be that low. So I have nothing at once. At twos, like my example I chose was Arimo, which I think is boring because other people have chosen it. But I'll also throw in My Little Sister is among them. So if you, as you can guess, another incesty show, something that even though it had like decent art or whatever, it still was frustrating to watch and was just I morally could not side with anything that happens or is said in that show. I think it is like appallingly bad, is what I would say for twos. And then for my three show, I chose Citrus because I think the show looks very pretty, but the messaging in it is horrible. It says, "Hey, if you get sexually assaulted, it might turn you on and make you fall in love with someone and change sexuality. You never know. That bothered me quite a bit for me to throw it down at a 3, even though again the art is fine, the voice acting's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, but other than how morally incorrect it is, I would say. So yeah, that's my 1 to 3. Jay, what about you?
So I'm going to echo Pat and Johnny before me and say that I also do not have anything at a 1. But if I did have something at a 1, it would be something that I was forced to watch through either Watch Club or one of you guys through Secret Santa. Because yeah, I would not just choose to continue watching a 1. The only 2 show I have is actually something that I was also forced to watch. And honestly, like in spirit, it's a 1 because of what we could have had instead of it, and that's Guilty Crown, which is an offensively bad show with horrible messaging and just truly like not really that much going for it besides a somewhat cool power system that has its own issues as well, is what I'll say. I also don't have any 3s, but I think if I was going to put one of my 4s as a 3, since I'm not going to mention it for my 4s, I would have to say it would be the Record of Ragnarok anime, just because I'm a huge fan of the manga, and the first season of the anime becomes literal PowerPoints during some of the hypest moments in the manga. So, like, as a fan, it was offensively bad to me. So, like, in spirit, it's probably closer to a 3 than a 4, actually. I might update that. And, yeah, then with that, I'm going to go ahead and throw it off to Pete.
Thank you. So in my mind, I view scores sort of like if I was grading a paper at school. So if I was handed a paper and I gave it like a 97%, that would probably be a 10 for me. So that's kind of like my grading scale. 90 to 96 is a 9, 80 to 89 is a B, so on and so forth. So that's kind of like how I view my grading scale. I also value things like theming and messaging and enjoyment higher than things like animation, music, and characters. While I do like those, I'm a huge fan of like messaging and theming and stories the most. For me, my number for shows that I gave 1, these are like where the writers of the story need to be arrested or switch careers. It's blasphemy at its highest. Straight Buns. This is the type of show where like if you saw it on somebody's mal, like rated a 5 or higher, you would like question them as humans. So for me, those are Remo and the Master of Ragnarok and Blesser of Einhar. Those are the only 2 shows that I have at a 1. Yeah, I've ranted about Blesser of Einhar a lot, but the fact that he is a tactical genius by looking up Wikipedia articles is some of the most bullshit I've ever seen in anime. It is trash. And he makes all of his harem call him Oni-chan, which is fucking weird. Number 2, for 2s, these are just like straight ass shows where it's like it's not like inherently like demeaning towards like culture or people. There's a lot of negatives in these shows. It makes you like hate that you watch anime. Those shows to me are something like Blood Blockade Battlefront, Redo of a Healer, Arrow Manga Sensei. A lot of times they have like one redeeming quality for something like Arrow Manga Sensei. Like the OP is a fucking banger. So it's like I literally gave it a 2 because the OP is like better than the Aribo OP, even though they're essentially the same show. And then stuff like Shield Hero Season 2, like the meme of the giant CGI turtle, I gave it a 2 just because of that. So something like where it's just so bad, I'm trying to find ways to make it fun. And I found like one redeeming quality. So props to CG, giant turtles, and OPs that are bops and incest shows. And then 3s, these are just like really poorly written shows, like massive plot holes, or just like really awful dialogue, cringing a lot of what I'm watching. Some of my examples of that: Guilty Crown, that got brought up. The Irregular at Magic High School, and Kokoro Connect. Shows like those are in my 3 ranges. That is the first tier of ratings. I'm gonna pass it over to Miles. We're gonna do what's in our 4 to 6 range and how we view those.
So for my 4, I only have 2 4s. I have Elfen Lied and No Game No Life. So I'll talk about No Game No Life because I'm like way more passionate about hating that than anything else. But like No Game No Life has like 4 points because the color palette is just like fantastic. Like I love the whole like visual aspect of the show, and like it's like technically just like really good. And like even though it does show a 10-year-old's labia 10 seconds into the show, and like that's just unforgivable for me, it does have some fun moments in it and stuff. So like if someone were to take this show and completely like you could keep the plot mostly, and someone who isn't a complete degenerate could like write it, and like I'd probably really enjoy the show. It would probably be similar to like Birdie Wing or something, which is like something I love. But someone who is a complete degenerate wrote it. And like that's fine. People like that kind of stuff, but I don't. And so it's a 4. For my 5, I will talk about Spice and Wolf. For Spice and Wolf, like there's a lot of good stuff about the show, but it just bored me. I was really bored. And so like 5 I think is sort of the range where it's like I'm understanding the merits of this show, like I get it. Like I get why someone would like Spice and Wolf, but I was just really bored. Like I just couldn't bring myself to care. And that's why it was sort of like a 5 for me. 6 for me is like a show where I like liked it, but there were some things that I couldn't even get over while watching it. So I'm gonna go with Beaufry for this, which is like a really cute little story, and like I like the characters and stuff, but like and I get that it's supposed to be cute, and I hate fun, so Pete can already get that in there. But
It's
like
true.
they have all of these scenes of the game developers being like, there's nothing we could do to stop her. Patch the game. Just patch the fucking game. And like it just it happened like 50 times, and they do patch it, and then they're like, our patch didn't work. Just
She
patch it
keeps
again.
finding exploits.
Well,
Yeah, I
to
know.
be fair, like most of this Discord has also played New World, and they tried patching that game several times, and that didn't work.
True. Maybe they just fucking suck at game development. But
It's
then
like the South Park episode too, where it's like the devs for World of Warcraft are like, this guy is going around PKing everyone, and we just
No,
can't stop him.
that's just true to life. That's
yeah,
Blizzard, baby.
yeah, that's actually just. Wait, do none of us play the game? No, we all have lives.
Great episode.
Yeah, it's really funny. But like for me, that was just like I get Maple isn't supposed to have any conflict and it's supposed to be funny, but I wanted Maple to have some conflict. I freaking hate that this girl who plays the game like 6 hours a week, like beats this no lifer. Like that just shouldn't happen. I think it's silly. Like imagine if Akane and Yamada-kun was like headshotting Yamada or something. That's what it felt like to me. Um, while there are definitely aspects of a 6 that I enjoy, it did have things that like, and I get that I'm wrong for this. I feel like I'm wrong for this, but it did bother me. It did. So that's why that's like a 6.
I could tell.
Just patch the game. It's so
For the love
easy
of
to
God!
Moss, have you played a single video game?
I have. They patch them all the time. Cat.
Okay, so 4 through 6. So this category right here is very at the low end. It's like just getting to about the point where I'm able to at least enjoy a recurring part about the show. For example, like Handshakers, there's a one point in that show that's hilarious, and then the rest of the show is trash. Like for 4s, for example, like let's say Drifters. Drifters, I have it at 4. Drifters is really hard to it's hard to enjoy most of the show, but there, I forget what his name is. The pilot. The pilot in Drifters is very fun. He's very interesting to watch. And he actually keeps my attention. That's one of the things that I liked about Drifters. That's actually why it's at a 4. Moving on to 5s. This is where like Shield Hero comes in. Like I have things that I can enjoy about the show. I can lose myself into like part of the show, but Shield Hero is really weird because it has one thing about the show that I can't overlook, which is why it's a 5. And that's, just casually mentioning slavery. And everybody around him is like, hey, being like having slaves is bad. We shouldn't have slaves. Well, why is slavery illegal in your fucking country? I don't know. But another example of 5 is a certain magical index. So a certain magical index is weird because is my stereotypical 5 because there are things that I can enjoy about the show. I enjoy the secondary and tertiary characters a lot more than I enjoy the main characters of the show being I can't even remember his name. He's a Blandbish protagonist and Index, who is the other primary character. Basically, they play off each other, and they are the focus of the show, obviously. But it's so I can't get behind it because it's just so much of a bland show with those two at the forefront, but I have the secondary characters to kind of carry the weight of the show, and it's actually fun with that. And then for sixes, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. This is one of the shows that I will get flamed in the comments because I don't like. But the thing is, JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, specifically the first season, it's very by the book type of story. Like you have the hero who does all the great things, and then you have the villain that is like comically evil. And I get that that's what the first season is supposed to do. It's supposed to set up for the rest of the bizarre adventure, which it does get more bizarre and it does get more fun. But for 12 episodes, is just this story of good versus evil played up just a little bit higher. And even though that's a little bit bizarre during the first season, I can't really get behind it. But yeah, that's my 4 through 6. Johnny, you're up next.
So for me, a 4 is like it's something that's like I watched is like that I enjoyed, but then it just does something by the end of the anime that just pisses me off so much it just drops the score by like 3 or 4 points. So the example I'm gonna go for is the show Charlotte. So this one, written by Jun Maeda, which wrote Clannad, one of my favorite anime of all time. I went into it thinking, it was gonna be a good show. Starting off, it was a good show, and then it just had one of the worst endings in anime history. It's just so ridiculously bad. And it's like the only reason why I give it a 4 is because I have to acknowledge the fact that like the show is objectively like decent. Like there's nothing wrong with the show from like an animation, voice acting, that kind of thing. It's just that the show just does something that just messes with me to the point where I legitimately get mad at it. So out of 5, it's whatever. It exists. I acknowledge that this is a show, but like, did it have to exist? Did I have to watch this? It's like a 5 is the kind of show where like if somebody said that they like the show, I'm like, okay, that's fine. But if somebody said that like a 5 out of 10 show is like their favorite anime of all time, I'm gonna be asking a lot of questions. So for me, a 5 is just Bang Dream. It is like it exists. That's all I can say about it. It exists. And for a 6, I think a 6 is getting to a point where I acknowledge that for some people, a 6 out of 10 can be a good show. There are things that are about a 6 out of 10 that are enjoyable, but I think it's just because of personal reasons, I don't find as much enjoyment out of them, or there are specific parts of the show that bother me. So for my 6, this might be a bit of a hot take, but my 6 out of 10 is going to be Akira. That's because I understand that like the significance of Akira at the time it came out, it's just like the historical significance of it and all that. And like I respect that. But like in terms of my personal enjoyment, I can't honestly say that I enjoyed the show, which is why I give it a 6. And so that's how I judge shows. So I'm gonna pass it on to Pat.
All right, for me, I'd say a 4 generally is my 1 through 4 really doesn't differentiate much. It's I guess like everyone else has said, it's how much you enjoy it. So for a 4, it's probably a show that I think isn't offensive visually, but maybe storytelling is horrible, or messaging is really bad. And so I would say a good example of a 4 for me would be the show Bastard that aired on Netflix for us of the last year, where it's pretty. The violence and gore is cool, but the show is horribly written, and the main character is irredeemable and, in my opinion, unpleasant to watch. I can see why people like him. He's dark, he's edgy. I think that's literally what the show
Dark
is called.
Schneider.
Dark Schneider, right? No, but the show is like literally called like, oh, a dark power surge fantasy, whatever bullshit. I just could not get into it.
That's a great OP though.
It does.
Bloody Power Fame, that shit slaps.
Yeah, I'm
Too
not.
bad the show
That's like
sucks.
Yeah, it's also a
Yeah.
little too metally for me. But hey, again, it's different strokes for different folks, right? Like which is why it's like, all right, this isn't like well, it is offensively bad to me, I think, with the messaging. But at the end of the day, it's a power fantasy show. It's fine, whatever. Fives for me are usually shows that disappointed me in one way or another, whether that's with writing or with just pivotal plot points, or shows that I was okay on and just very indifferent towards, kind of like what Johnny said. I think Bang Dream, I think I had it at a 4, but I think it's probably a 5, right? But I was so bored by it that I put it at a 4. Escaflowne, the movie, is what I'm going to put here, where I was frustrated by it, and I could see that it was trying to do things, and I think it would be fun to watch in the show form, but the movie itself frustrated me too much for me to really be any higher on it. And lastly, for 6, Johnny actually stole one of mine. I was gonna also throw in Akira because, like Johnny said, it's historically significant. It's a really impactful anime, but man, I did not like it very much at all. I struggled to see how people loved it so much, and I know it's not for me, and that's okay. But so I'd say that that's what I generally do with sixes. Sixes for me are usually either shows that really didn't do anything, or that I thought fizzled out, maybe. A good example might be something that didn't fit what the manga was. So for me, Domestic Girlfriend is another good example of a 6 where I wanted it to be better, like what the manga was, but the show ended funny. It had a bad ending. Something along those lines is where a 6 usually ends up for me. I think another final way that I use sixes as well is for a show that I know probably critically is good, but I just did not enjoy watching at all and could not get into. Kaiba is going to be my example for that. I have it at a 6. I know it's not bad. Hated every minute of watching it, and but it's objectively fine, yeah, and a good show, I think. So that for me is my final version of a 6. And Jay, what about you?
Okay, so I'm gonna start off with my 4s here. And I'm gonna start off with a hot. So Johnny actually stole what my quintessential 4 was, which is a Charlotte. So for me, a 4 is a show that is watchable, has some fatal flaw or multiple fatal flaws in it, whether that's like like Pat said, the messaging, or like the animation is like super like janky, or just usually it's stuff that I would watch it one time but probably would not watch it again, and definitely wouldn't recommend it to anybody. So for me, actually, my quintessential 4 that isn't Charlotte is Death Note.
Ooh, we love it.
Wow.
I am not a fan of Death Note. I think that it is a show that is, and manga for what it's worth as well, as someone who's read and watched both, it's very up its own ass. The author is, yeah, like carried by the art. It is a show that is a show in manga, in my opinion, that is carried by the art and by the fact that a lot of people came upon it whenever they were first getting into anime. So they thought, "Oh wow, this is a great like mystery," but it's like, just go watch Monster. Like it's better, I promise. Or even Link Click, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think for me, like what separates a 4 from a 5 is that a 5 is something where like if I saw it on, I wouldn't change the channel because it has some entertaining merit to me, like some rewatchability. So for me, actually, this is a weird one, And you know what? We're gonna say that I'm gonna just go ahead and say that I do think that this is over Death Note in my anime power rankings. My quintessential 5 is Metal Fight Beyblade, which is a pretty garbage show, all things considered, but like it's just super like off the rip entertaining. Like it's just so buck wild. Whenever they present you with the fact that like Moses parted the Red Sea with a Beyblade, for instance.
Peak.
Like that's a 5 to me has something to it that sets it apart from the lower tiers. Like this for me is when we start getting into stuff that I would actually like recommend to people or rewatch with some caveats. So like my caveat for Beyblade would be watch this if you don't mind like watching a literal children's show, and if you want something completely ridiculous, for instance. I also had Escaflowne out of 4, by the way. So like 2 in a row at 4 stolen from me. Not stolen, but you know. And then for 6, I think my quintessential 6 is. So this is a pretty. This is full of shows that I actually don't dislike all that much. We have stuff like Erased, Umaru-chan, Summer Ghost, Tokyo Revengers here. I think my quintessential 6 is Mariko-chan. A fine show, good theming to it, kind of some weird undertones to it at points, like with the bath scene and such. But like something I could definitely see myself recommending to a pretty wide variety of people if they're like not scared off by the initial premise and the slight horniness at the beginning is what I would say. So I think for me, like in the 4, 5, 6 range, what it really comes down to is like these are all like mid, like on the upper better end of bad to average. And what separates the upper echelons of that for me is like, does it have a hook that really gets you? Does it have something special that sets it apart from the other 40 seasonals that were alongside it that season? That sort of thing. And with that slightly more in-depth explanation, I'm going to pass it off to Peter.
Let's go. All right. So for my 4s, these are like things that do one thing really bad to the point where it's irritating, but there's something about it that keeps you watching. And also, a lot of times my 4 falls into like good premise, poor execution. So something like that really stuck out to me for like my 4 is like Angel Beats, where I think like on paper it should have been way better than it was. Also, this falls into like some really trashy, ecchi shit like Asterisk Wars, and then also like really bad shows that are like bad. My prime example is Love Live Sunshine, where like I really enjoyed the first Love Live, and then I hated Sunshine. Like that's where it falls into my 4 category. My 5s, it does nothing good and nothing bad, or it does something really good then really bad. Something like that would be like Fena Pirate Princess, where like the ending is just so bad it like I dropped the score like 2, 3, 4 points. Also, where the bland area I get there, that's like my Rent-A-Girlfriends, my like Overlords, where it's just like really just okay material. And then for my 6, a lot of times these are the shows that have like high budgets, but to me they fumble the bag in certain ways where I don't think that they're as good as people say they are. Or a lot of times this is where like most of my ecchi falls in, because I think ecchi tries to do one thing and a lot of times they succeed at it, but the ceiling for that is a 6 in my book. So yeah, like
Coward. You're a coward.
like Monster Musume is like a 6. Like it's always going to be a 6. High School DxD, depending on which season it is. Actually, I think I have one season at 7, but most
if you
of
weren't
high
a coward, we do Valkyrie Drive Mermaid.
Well,
and then we can see.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who here has actually seen it, and I'm not putting that on my Mal. But that would also fall in a 6. And then
Absolute coward.
higher budget shows like Attack on Titan season 1 are like 86 for me, falls into the 6 range. So that is my 4 through 6. Miles, why don't you do our next bracket, the 7s and 8s?
Yeah, so 7s and 8s, that's when I'm finally like fully enjoying a show. sevens are shows to me that either never hit like the high highs that but are like competent and entertaining all the way through. For me, that's something like ReZero. Like I enjoyed ReZero most of the time. There were a couple moments that maybe annoyed me, but there was never any moments where I was like, "Let's fucking go!" Like I just never really got super passionate about it. Not even during the white whale scene. So that's sort of like a seven to me. So it's something that's it doesn't hit the high notes of the numbers to come, but it's never bad or anything. There aren't huge flaws. I'll probably still complain about it because that's who I am, but like, it's not real. It's just there are some issues with it. There are a couple other things that can give something a 7 if something is like a technical masterpiece, but maybe the messaging is like not where I want it to be. I could give it like a 7. Um or if something ends poorly and it was as Pete was mentioning earlier, like if other things fall in there too, but that ReZero example for me is like my quintessential 7. For 8s, it's very similar to a 7, but it has some like we're moving away from like the hills and getting into the mountains. Those peaks are a little bit higher now, you know? You have some valleys and stuff, you know, maybe some moments, a couple of episodes, like a 2-episode arc where like I'm a little bored. So for me, Mobile Suit Gundam Iron Blooded Orphans is like a really good example of this, where there are like large swaths of that show where I'm glued to my screen, I'm super invested in what's happening, and then there are like between those moments maybe like 2 or 3 episodes where I'm like, "Huh, this is fine." But for the most part when you like average that all together, it's really enjoyable, but there still is you're getting less of that stuff that I'm not super hype about. And as we move into our 9s and 10s, that those moments are just sort of gone. So if something's like, well, I'll talk about it later, but basically what's going to separate this from a 9 or a 10 is that there's still bits in an 8 where I'm maybe not the craziest about something. But I still like overall above average for the majority of the anime. Kat, how about your 7s and 8s?
So for my sevens, I have a lot of sevens. Sevens are my go-to score for something, and for this reason. Sevens are the type of show. So I have three criteria for sevens. The first criteria is a show that starts off really enjoyable. Like it starts off, and I'm like throughout the first 6 episodes, I'm rating it like eights, nines, sometimes maybe even a 10. And then it might fumble the bag a bit. Not to the point where I'm going down to like sixes and fives. Like it's if Handshakers was like an 8, and then it got revealed that one of the characters was that two of the characters that were brother and sister just decided, we're gonna hook up, like that would bring it down to a 5. Versus an 8, they have some things that kind of push it over the top. For me, that'd be Uzaki-chan. Like Uzaki is very fun for me because I like the bantering between the two characters, and like it isn't that remarkable for me, but it is also very enjoyable. It's something that I can watch a lot of the time and not really have a problem with, and still feel good. But I'm not gonna rave about it like all the time. And the difference between like that versus something like Akadama Drive or something like that, where it was basically a 10 through the whole way through, and then it fumbled the bag and the ending, but the journey from like episode 1 to episode 10 or 11, that's where like all of that score is, and that last episode dropped it down 2 points. That's kind of how I feel about an 8, because those are like they either are very even all the way through, or they have very high highs and then fumble. Those are kind of like my scores for sevens and eights.
Kind of like with Pete and like etchy anime. For me, 7 out of 10 is where like most slice of life anime ends up. It's like, and I think that like sevens for me in general is like I can look back and like if somebody asks me like, "Hey, did you watch the show?" I'll be like, "Yeah, it's good," and then I'll proceed to not remember anything that happened in the show. That's like a 7 for me. It's like I watched it, I had a good time, but at the end of the day, if I didn't watch it, would my life be any different? No, not really. And I guess there's also another category where it's just like I think the show is bad, but I also ironically enjoyed it, so I gave it a 7. So like for me, my 7 out of 10 is SAO because it's just like I will say some things about SAO are genuinely really good. Like the animation in the newest season is actually like probably top 10. But it's just the story's so bad. So like that's a 7 out of 10 for me. For me, it's like it's either like funny, bad, but still enjoyable, or something that's like it's good, but it's not really memorable. For me, an 8, it brings it up to that point where it's like after watching it, I'll like think back on a couple of scenes, like oh, I really like this, like just a couple of things about the show that was really good. So for me, my eighth example here would be Wuthering with You. I think that like Wuthering with You is probably the visually one of the best anime I've ever seen. I liked a lot of scenes about it, but it's just like there was just some things about it that weren't enough to like bring it up to that next level of a 9 or a 10. But it's still something that I enjoyed, and I can look back and remember certain scenes and talk about it with other people. So that's what I consider an 8 out of 10. So moving on to Pat.
I also put SAO as my 7 out of 10 for just a
Why don't we
slightly
just
different
steal each
reason.
other's?
I don't know.
We keep
We
stealing
got
each
good
other's.
we got good taste, I guess. Yeah, so I the reason I put SAO there though is probably because of personal affect. It's what got me into anime and I love it. So I think a lot of shows are in that 7 out of 10 range because of that, because I enjoyed the show and I acknowledged that there were a lot of flaws with it, but I still liked it enough to want to recommend it to someone, like kind of like what you said earlier as well, Johnny, with the what something that I could say to someone and be like, "Oh yeah, no, I would watch that. That was good. It was worth the time to watch." I'd say the 7 is really the breaking point for that. 7 and above is where I would start recommending basically everything that's on my list there. Another thing that might be a 7 for me would be something that wasn't remarkably amazing, but also just I thought did like a pretty objective good job with the story or with just everything in general. So I chose The Princess and the Pilot, which is a movie that almost no one has seen, but it's just perfectly fine, and there's nothing wrong with it. Really, it's a very basic story, very basic characters, and it's just solid. There's nothing really to differentiate it otherwise. And I'd say when I start getting into the 8 category is when it starts approaching closer to being flawless. There may be one glaring error that keeps it from being a 10 to me, or a point where I disagree with the character decision that felt out of character, it's usually there's only one or two things wrong for me with an 8 to not have it be in that next tier up. And so I chose Bocchi the Rock, I think, for my quintessential 8 because I really, really enjoyed watching the show. I thought the characters were really, really good and fun. Thought the dialogue was fun, but it was just a bit repetitive for me. It didn't feel it didn't tick over to that next tier for me. Maybe I didn't relate to it as much because I'm probably about the opposite of Bocchi. I'm very outgoing. I like and social. I'm very extroverted as a person, so maybe I couldn't relate to it as much. I really don't know. But yeah, so that's what I would put, or that's how I would characterize 7s and 8s. Jay, what about you?
So I think for me, 7 and 8 are like a 6 to a 7 is probably about like overall average to me. I think 7 in general, this is where I kind of fall on middling adaptations of manga that I like. So things that have a strong premise to them, but maybe I didn't like either the direction or the animation or something about it. Like there's pieces of it that keep it from ascending to the 8s or the 9s. So for me, I actually have two examples of this from a recent season. The first one is Tokyo Mew Mew New, which, in my opinion, was a very solid adaptation of the source material that updated it to a modern time. Tokyo Mew Mew New is a very environmental focused manga and always has been, and anime as well. So they updated some of the figures to kind of show how dire the situation has gotten since like the manga came out in the 90s. Like there's something where like in the manga in the 90s there were like 5% of species worldwide are facing extinction, and then they update it to like 25% for them like for this year to show like to make it accurate for present day. But there were certain aspects of it that just kind of kept me from liking it too much. Like I think that like for me, voice acting was a big one for this because all the voice actors were brand new idols that they got to do the OP and stuff like that. So there were some kind of iffy parts of that. The other one that I would compare this to that I have an basically like an equal amount of enjoyment for what happened in it was Chainsaw Man. Chainsaw Man and Tokyo Mew Mew New are equal anime in my eyes. I just didn't like the direction too much in the Chainsaw Man
Didn't
anime.
know you were so low on Tokyo Mew Mew, Jay.
I didn't like the direction that much. It was kind of like I understand what the director was going for, but I just didn't think it was a good adaptation for that manga in particular. So that kind of showed like sevens for me. Like there's something that is just kind of wrong with a core aspect of it that keeps me from putting it as like a truly great show, but it is still something that I would recommend to most people provided they're into like the genre. An 8 for me is something that like I think it's pretty special overall and would recommend to most people. Usually they have like really good themings or they're very feel good things that I think people kind of need in their lives, or they have like just really solid characters or animation that are cut above everything else on the list right now. So for me, I think it's hard. It's hard to say what my quintessential 8 is because I think this is where I end up rating a lot of the stuff that we watch, as well as a lot of the seasonals that I end up sticking with are 8s. I think for me, though, the quintessential 8, I'm going to have to go with DIY Do It Yourself as my quintessential 8.
Good job.
That show, I think, just has like great voice acting, fantastic animation style. Like I think it just has a very unique animation and art style in general. And I love the soundtrack as well. Like it felt like I was playing Animal Crossing the whole time I was watching it, which like the vibe like it's a wholly vibes based 8, but like to me, I think that art at the end of the day is about how it elicits a reaction in people. And something like Do It Yourself that like gets to the core of it and makes it feel like, yes, I can do it myself. Like I think that that's something people need, and for me, like that's what elevates an 8 is whenever it's something that I think has the potential to affect people's lives with messaging or just like the beauty of it or whatever. And yeah, with that slightly more emotional explanation, I'm going to pass it off to Peter.
I also gave DIY an 8, so let's go. So my 7s, these usually fall in the line along the lines of they do like one or two things like well or very well, but then miss the mark on other parts of the story. Or if they have like a really fun cast of characters, this is usually what falls in my 7. A lot of the shows that I find like fun and enjoyable, relaxing, that don't take itself too serious usually fall in the 7 category. So shows like Noragami is like a 7 for me, where this is also like a show where if they removed one character, Yuki, it'd be like a 9. But there's like something where they do something like really well and then something else is just off about it. Other things like Domestic Girlfriend, where it is just a trashy soap opera, and that's what I'm viewing it as, and that's what I got. And to me, that's like a great 7 out of 10 anime. And something like My Little Monster, where it's like really just like goofy and fun, rom-com where like the male lead can like beat up the world and the girl is like his kryptonite. Stuff like that is just like really fun and goofy and shows I like. And then my 8s are things that do like kind of like the same things but just a little bit well or better than like a 7. this is also where like shows that have like a lot of potential but are unfinished fall in this category. Before season 2 came out, but like season 1 of like Devil is a Part-Timer to me was like the stereotypical like 8, where it's just like this show could be so much fun. Like I love the premise, it's unique. That and The Girl Who Left Through Time were like my staples for 8s. And then also something like Nishi Joe, where it's super funny and it does things like really well. I just want more of it to like really flesh out the story, because it doesn't really like conclude anything. It's just kind of a little episodic at points, but it does have like a little bit of a main storyline, but we got left off at a point where it's just like it just ends there. So that's like why something like Nishi Joe, where it's critically acclaimed, to me is like an 8 and not higher. Okay, so we're gonna move on to our 9s and 10s to wrap things off. Miles, take it away.
Yeah, so I have like two categories for nines, right? So there are nines which are just like absolutely phenomenal shows, but they don't quite resonate with me on like a 10 level. So that might be something like Your Name or Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. There's just phenomenal movies and shows. There's really nothing wrong with them for the most part. Sure, you can like maybe, if you really want to dig into it, come up with some complaints, at least from my perspective, but they don't like resonate with me as much as something that I would give a 10. The other version of a 9 for me is something that like sure, it has flaws, but who fucking cares? It's awesome. And so like Birdie Wing is my example for that. Some people might be like, "Oh, Birdie Wing, you have that at a 9?" And I would say, "Fuck yeah, I do." And you know what? If they kiss at the end, I'll give it a 10. So that's sort of it for me. Like I don't, whatever, for whatever reason, I just like really love Birdie Wing. I have so much fun watching it. It is a great time every episode I put it in. I'm invested in all the little arcs and stuff. I was like, holy shit, who's Aui's real father? Like, it's soapy bullshit. Pete was saying that's like how he gives something a 7, but I don't fucking care. For me, it's a 9. I love that shit. I'll eat it up. um, my wife and I bonded over our love of Degrassi. So
Based.
yeah, that's it for me for 9s. Now 10s are something that like they either hit me in my heart in some way, where I'm like, this is like literally me, like when I'm watching that stargazing scene in Kaguya, where I was just like, I was Shirogane when I was a teenager, and it just like made me feel so happy and wholesome and stuff. That's like the way that I do that. If I like super heavily relate to something and it's also just like really well made and I enjoyed it the entire time, but it has that like extra level of resonance with me, or it sort of like matches my wavelength, that's one. And then the other one is something that makes me feel like utter fucking trash as a human being and makes me hate being human. So my favorite anime of all time is Devilman Crybaby. And after I watched that, I just felt like absolute trash for a while. And I was just like, what have I seen? Why do we even bother living here? And I love that feeling. It makes me really happy. And
Same feeling you got after watching a Remo.
no, it's different, but same.
Slightly
So you're
different.
telling me Oremo is a 1, but also a 10 for you.
There's a thin line between love and hate. The difference between a 1 and a 10 is a 0. I'll let you figure out what that means. But if something just like really makes me feel something, no matter which way it is, as long as it's what I view as like the intended message of the show, be that heavy amounts of joy or heavy amounts of sadness or something, and I just can't stop thinking about it, that's like a 10 for me. It's just something that like impacts me very greatly. Kat, how about you?
So, for nines are shows that so this is where like heavy feelings come into play. Nines are shows that I know are not like they're not quality enough to be a 10. Like there's just enough issues with quality, or just like there's something that's hampering it back, like it looks a little bit too dated, or like for its time, let's put it that way. Or it's very, there are certain things that just hold it back, like for as an example, My Roommate is a Cat is one of the shows that almost got me to tears. It's not a show that people normally think as a 9, but it's one of those shows that when I look at it, especially with the death of my cat from like 12 that I've had for like 12 years, this show hits even harder. I was actually watching this at work and starting to tear up because it reminded me of my cat Sunny, because of it's a very simple story, but it's told very elegantly, in my opinion, and it hits me in such a good place that it makes me feel good, and it reassured me that it is a 9. The other version of a 9 is something that is just right up there. There's something about it that keeps it back, like Real Life. Real Life is a 9 for me because it's almost there. It's almost there. If there was a little bit of extra momentum with Real Life, like the ending episode of Real Life where we actually saw them like go a little bit through life together and see them a little bit older instead of them having cut off, like even the little bit of the web comic that they had, that's one of the things that I would have loved. That would have pushed it over to a 10 for me. On the other hand, a 10, there are things that are quality 10s, and there are things that are emotional 10s. An immediate 10 is something that makes me cry. Like, actually makes me, like, ugly cry because I've got so much, like, feelings going on. One of those would be Millennium Actress. Satoshi Kon. Millennium Actress made me feel like almost happy to be aging in a way. It was like being able to look at what I've done over my life, for how much life I've had. It makes me feel like, I'm not just kind of floundering through life. I'm doing decent things at the very least to try and, like, at least further myself, if not my community. And it made me cry in a really good way. It made me feel good. I and then there's quality tins. Now, Millennium Actress is a quality 10, but it's mainly a 10 for the emotional aspect of it. Versus something like Made in Abyss, the what's the name of it?
The second season.
Uh, the second season, The Golden City of the Scorching Sun. This show is quality because even though there are emotional aspects to it, the show is top-notch music. Kevin Pinkin is a genius when it comes to music, and the animation is absolutely stunning with the characters that have already been developed and going throughout the world and trying to figure out this mystery of what's going on, and then the culmination of it, the climax of the entire show is this absolutely grand masterpiece that by itself could be a movie that gets a 10, but it's wrapped into a show that has a 10 around it. That is the culmination of peak. That is perfect. Made in Abyss, the Golden City of the Scorching Sun is my culmination of a 10, and it is the reason why I watch anime.
So for me, it's like a 9 is like when you watch an anime and then once you're done, you just have to sit down for a second and just like not do anything and just look up in the sky. It's like, fuck, I just watched that. That, like, you guys know that feeling, right? It's like you watch a show that's so good you just don't want to do anything else for like the next 20 minutes. You just want to think about the show. You Google when season 2's coming out. You want to see that, like, what's next. You're tempted to buy the manga, but you never do because you're never committed to anything in life. Maybe that's just me, but that to me is a 9. Is something that makes you think. It's not something that you're gonna easily forget. It's something that's just phenomenal in one way or another that makes you just really want to, like, think of, like, it stays with you. I think that's the separation between, for me, between an 8 and a 9, is that a show that's a 9 out of 10 sticks with me on an emotional level. And for me, something like that, but it's just that there's just always this one little thing that separates it from a 10. So for me, my example of a 9 is, and probably my strongest 9 is Mushoku Tensei, and that's because it is the only show that I have watched all 24 episodes of in one day. Like,
Hello,
I know
police.
what Miles is gonna say, yeah, but like I cannot deny I've never had that experience of a show before where I just could not stop watching until it was over. And but the thing is, that's what separates it from, because my other nine that I was gonna say is also Made in Abyss. Unfortunately, both these shows can't be tens because of yeah.
Things.
So yeah, and that's where the separation of a 9 and a 10 for me. I think for me, the emotional impact between a 9 and a 10 is roughly the same. It's just that a 10 stays with me for years. And that's why for me, I think I have the least 10 out of 10 shows for me compared to all of you guys. Because for me, if we only count full seasons of shows, I only have 3 shows out of 10. And for me, it's like it has to just be something that like I see that like is above almost everything else that I've seen. It has done so much for me, and I know that like this is a show that in 10 years I'll still think is a 10 out of 10. And for me, my example to probably nobody's surprise here is ReZero. It's like I think I
Oh.
watched it. I think I watched it at like the perfect time for me when I was like 15 years old. And it's like, I think at the time, I didn't think it was a 10, but now looking back, and I think like, I really do want to think that like watching ReZero has made me like reconsider a lot of things about my life. And it's like, it's the only show that actually managed to get me to read ahead. So I think that has to say something about it. And it's just something that like stays with me for such a long time. Like I could write a 5 hour, I could write a 5 page, not 50-page essay about this. But yeah, I'm just gonna move on. I think I've said enough, so let's move on to Pat.
For a 9, for me, I'd say generally it's just a show that I enjoyed all throughout, and it either hasn't had the chance to make up that payoff, that final little oomph that would tick it over to a 10. So a good example for that might be Haruhi has not done that yet, even though I think I have all three Haruhi entries at a 9 out of 10 so far. If whatever that story finishes or reaches its natural ending point, uh I could see myself moving that up to a 10, right? I think that's one of the categories of 9s that are out there. Another category would be a show that has this immense emotional payoff moment, but doesn't quite tick the box throughout the rest of it. So I think a good example of this is Fate Zero, specifically the second season of Fate Zero. The second half of the season is just mind-blowingly great. I could not put it down, and I loved it. But it does drag at points. There's very minor problems with it. I would say throughout the show, so that's why it's at a 9 for me. And then the last example of a show at a 9 that I had was Perfect Blue, and I would say the reasoning behind that is that not only did I really enjoy it and think it critically was an incredible movie, I was frustrated by the ending. I was frustrated by the lack of clarity or the lack of a solution, which I know is the point. Doesn't matter. It still frustrated me. So that's why I have it at a 9. And I think there are a couple other shows like that where I would have wanted a slightly more clear messaging or solutions, I guess. Maybe not messaging, but solutions and answers to the questions that it had posed. And so yeah, that's where my 9s are. And my 10s generally are going to be shows that, like everyone else has said, either emotionally moved me or that I think were just perfect throughout, which is, there's very few of them out there as well. For me, a good example I think would be Violet Evergarden. I mean, I've got it freaking tattooed on me. I adore that show, and even with some of the flaws or different moments that it has that are flawed, I still loved it enough that the flaws didn't even really bother me. And I wouldn't even really like highlight them. I wouldn't even know where to start, but I understand why people don't like it. But for me, it completely changed my perspective on an entire emotion I feel, love and gratitude and appreciation for yeah, the different kinds of love in your life. And I so that's one category of 10s I would say. Another category of 10s is a show that I think is both well written and something I enjoyed immensely, and that would be Zombieland Saga Revenge specifically. There's tons of payoff off of stuff that is set up earlier on in the show, both in the first season and the second season. I think the show is very cleverly written, and it demonstrates that there is stuff that is thought about at the beginning, very, very beginning of the show that they meant to have happen. Everything that happens on screen is done for a reason. And I'd say the last category for tens, which is only a few of them, are shows that I think are not only perfectly written, beautiful, but also just blow me away and have that moment where you just it just it leaves you thinking about it, like others have said, thinking about it for months, years to come, whatever. And I think a good example of that would be Gurren Lagann for me. I could not stop thinking about that show after I finished it. I never can. I still talk about it nonstop, and it is going to forever be one of my favorite stories, I think, and in my opinion, the most complete story I've ever seen told in fiction. And so I think that like shows like that, shows that I am that's emotionally attached to, are also going to be tens for me. But yeah, what about you, Jay?
For me, nines are stuff that I think everybody should watch in some way. Usually, they have like some pretty deep theming to them. So, like, i.e., something like Girls Last Tour or Inu-Oh or Cyberpunk Edge Runners. Whereas, like, a 10 to me has to really stretch and push the boundaries of the medium that it's in. I use video games as an example all the time because people have some like, you know what? I won't get into it. But needless to say, I don't think The Last of Us is a 10 out of 10 video game. Great story though. So for animation, I think that like things that really push the boundaries as far as animation goes is stuff like Fooly Cooly FLCL, where they just literally switch mediums at points into like manga panels and stuff like that. Sunny Boy, where literally just like the whole thing is insane animation, beautifully done. Pretty much, I think Sunny Boy is my quintessential 10. Like that show really affected me and kind of like tends to me change how I view anime in some way. Like they affect my taste, they influence what I watch in the future. Um there's stuff that like if I were to give like a touchstone to somebody, like this is what I enjoy about animation as a medium. Like tens are stuff like that. So I've got, stuff like Fooly Cooly and Sunny Boy, as I mentioned, but I also have stuff like, Vinland Saga, both seasons of it, and Howl's Moving Castle as my Ghibli 10 personally. I just think that for me, tens are a wide variety of things, but they all have to be doing something that pushes the medium in some way, whether it's through the, actual animation or the risky storytelling or great voice acting cast, stuff like that. And with that, once again, slightly shorter explanation, I'm going to pass it off to Peter.
Awesome. Yeah, so for my nines, I kind of break it up into two different spots, especially for how many seasons I watch. So a nines for seasonals that I'm watching are shows that I find fantastic, but I'm not going out of my way essentially to watch the episode like the day it airs. So something like an example for that right now is like Golden Kamui, where I don't really have a flaw of that show. I just don't really go out of my way to watch it every single week. And Jay's death staring me. Also, it's just like shows out are movies that might just be missing like an it factor for me to really push it above the nine. So something like Miles said earlier, Your Name to me is like a really solid 9. And also something like Yuri on Ice is just like fundamentally great. I love like the soundtrack and the voice acting, but for some reason to me it just doesn't have that next level for me to push it to a 10 just based off personal taste.
Maybe if we had a movie.
Was that?
Maybe if we had a movie.
Maybe. And then my 10s are, I actually have like my top 10s are broken up into like two things. One I think is like technically the best, and then one is like my personal. But usually 10s are established and fleshed out stories. The technicality of it can vary, but usually you can tell it has a higher budget. It takes genres and elevates them above what's on the norm. So something like Asobi Asobase is like my favorite comedy anime of all time. So for me, that's a 10. But before I watched that, I had Psyche K at a 10. But then I kind of like adjust my rankings based off of what I view is like the best type of thing. So now Psyche K is a 9 and Asobi Asobase is a 10 because I feel like that is the funniest anime I've ever seen. So that's kind of like how I do my tens like that. And like a lot of times there's like underlying themes or messagings that I really love that elevate the show for me. Something like Ranking of Kings, which I thought its messaging was just fantastic, and how they did that through the story was incredible. But then I have like my perfect, like the best anime I've ever seen. I think like technically wise is just like Perfect Blue. I think it's just incredible what they do everything in that movie. So it varies from like something from like Asobi Asobase to Perfect Blue are in my tens, and though they are polar opposites. But it's kind of like how I do my tens, and it's really fun. And I like giving shows tens. If they are enjoyable and fun and well made, there's a good chance that it's going to be like an 8, 9, or 10 for me because I think anime is fun and I like rating fun things. So that is our rating scale. So before we get into like our fun little on the spot thing, we wanted to see how anime has changed for us throughout the years, like how you view anime. Maybe an example of like something that you watched before and now you view it differently. So Miles, you start. Go for it.
Yeah, so just like really quickly, I think a trend that has changed in me is that when I first started watching anime, I really liked, and I still do, but less so, not even less so, but like I really like Devil May Cry is my favorite anime, right? It's really dark, dim, pessimistic and stuff. But recently, I like some sunshine. I like some optimism. Let's be happy every once in a while. So that's
It's
sort of
starting to have fun.
how I've changed over the time. I've things don't need to be a downer to be good. You can be happy and good, and that's sort of how I've evolved my tastes. I think that's like the biggest evolution. I love me some happy endings now, and that's a big one for me. What about you, Kat?
So for me, when I just started getting into anime, I had to watch a show that my friends had watched. I had to watch a show that other people had watched, so I could discuss it with them. And mainly that was just because I want to be with cool kids. Well, but then now as I've changed, like like I've started to like shows that I can genuinely vibe with. I like to watch shows that make me feel good instead of uh trying to watch shows that other people talk about, because I can talk about shows that nobody else has watched because I have people that I enjoy. And part of that is watching it with you guys, because I like to be able to watch shows that I haven't seen before and be able to talk with them about people. And it's almost like, even if we're watching through a show that feels like sludge, I get to shit on it with you guys, which is very, very fun. So I do enjoy that. That's how anime has changed for me. What about you, Johnny?
Yeah, so for me, I guess when I was starting to watch anime, I would try to like in my head, I was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this amount of anime in this category so I can accurately gauge like what is the best show of like a specific category. So like slice of life, I'd watch Dragon Maid, uh, Isekai, I'd watch Sao, and yeah. So yeah, that's what I would do in the past. Is like I would try to like objectively see which show of which category was the best. But I think now that I've seen enough shows of like each category, I think I don't really care about what category of the show it is anymore. I kind of just watch like, okay, to be fair, I don't watch too much anime anymore, but I just watch like what people are saying is like the best shows overall instead of like looking for a specific genre show to watch.
Yeah, I'd say that to sum up my change in taste is I've gotten to have a lot less patience for garbage, in particular like rom com tropes and just tropes in general. I think I used to just not notice them or not be bothered by them, and I don't know, maybe I went to college and I learned how to write, and then I suddenly started to notice these things a lot more. And so I'd say I picked like a couple shows just to note like how my taste might have changed. So like Rail Wars, one of the first shows I ever watched, it went down to a 6 from being in like that 7 or 8 range originally. A show like My Little Monster that I watched went started at a 6, but like for me, but that's because I watched it later on. It would have been an 8 or a 9 if I was younger and less jaded. Uh, and then ironically, Shiki, the show, went up from a 6 to a 7 after seeing how the real world handled the pandemic, and after growing up a bit more and understanding why these characters are making such stupid decisions and so on. So I'd say that that's generally like again, my taste has generally stayed the same in terms of what I really enjoy in shows, but my tolerance for crap has gone way down, and I think that that reflects in just how little. I wouldn't say I'm like Johnny where I watch almost nothing, but I do watch a lot fewer shows than I used to when I was watching 10 or 15 seasonals, and I don't know, I stopped getting that satisfaction or that rush from finishing a show that I didn't even really care about that much. Maybe I've just gotten evolved to have less time or find different hobbies, but I'd say that that's how my taste has changed the most. What about you, Jay?
I kind of got back into anime like a few years back, so my taste hasn't really changed a whole lot. I think that I'm more open to just trying out seasonals and stuff now instead of sticking to stuff that I know. Like, I've definitely diversified my palette a lot more, I would say. And yeah, honestly, like I said, I haven't really like I don't have a long enough time frame to really give like an accurate judgment in my opinion. I know that's kind of a cop out, so I apologize for that, but after that I'm gonna pass it off to Peter. So I
Yeah.
don't have to explain
It is what it is. Mine actually kind of relates to Jay. I hate binging shows now. Like, I am a full seasonal watcher. I love the fact that like my Mondays are Vinland Saga, my Tuesdays are Skip and Lover, my Wednesdays are Ochi no Ko. Like, I love that, and I love the discourse where it's like, guess what? Kind of like what Kat says. Guess what? Tomorrow's Skip and Lover day. We can talk about it. I'm like, yes, I can't wait. Where if I go and binge, Miles is binging like Gundam Wing. It's like, I don't know. I watched that show when I was 12. It's really hard to talk about it. I guess I really like the discourse and staying relevant and watching good shows. Not like actually Gundam Wing's good. Sorry, but like stuff like that where it's like I can keep up with like
It's
what's airing now.
fun.
It's fun. It's fun. So yeah, that's by far the biggest thing that changed for me because I used to literally when I got into anime watch like episode like a 12 episode show like a day. Like I was watching an anime a day. And now I can't even imagine doing that anymore. I don't even remember the last anime I watched. Like, actually, I do remember. It's Laid Back Camp, and I was super hungover, and that's why I watched it.
Do you mind if I comment on that really quick?
No.
Because, okay. You don't mind or no, I can't?
Dealer's choice.
Okay. Because, like, okay, so I binged like 13 episodes of Vinland Saga today, and I fucking loved it. It was amazing. The show's so
Right.
good. I gotta just keep going. But I'm like of two minds of it, right? Like I love talking about some of these shows weeks to week, but other shows they just give me anxiety that I have to wait a week until like I love G Witch, but the fact that I have to wait week to week to figure out exactly what's happening, and also because it's original, and so I have no way to know if they're gonna just fumble the fucking bag at the end and like make the show bad, fills me with dread. I hate not knowing. I need to know, and I have to wait, and I hate it. But like,
I'm of the
it.
same.
honestly.
Yeah, I'd say I'm of the same mind where there are some shows I can watch week to week or like my favorites, but just generally speaking, I am such a binger now. I kind of meant to say that when I was watching, but like I don't know, like I can't even watch some anime at one time speed anymore. Sometimes, like there are shows that I liked that I was like, I need to watch at 1.5 or 2 times
Mhm.
because they just talk so slowly. Or and again, maybe that's me being jaded now,
you're
but
used to it now.
yeah, but like I'm aware of it now even more so, and I think that that reflects like part of that is I've watched so much great stuff that the bad stuff stands out, so much now, and
Mhm.
so I don't know. I think that that's sorry, I meant to say that earlier, but that's a great point. Like the binging versus seasonal watching, I've
Yeah.
done like there are shows that you're airing right now, like you guys are talking about with Birdie Wing. I'd love to binge that, but like sitting here week to week, I'd get lose interest eventually. I'd be frustrated to not be seeing how things are ending or finishing up.
For sure. All right, so that was like how we've changed throughout the years with our anime taste, and we're getting to our final portion. This is like the for fun on the spot. We all came up with questions for each other, and yeah, we'll have a fun little game here or whatever that we're gonna do. So I'm gonna go first, and then Miles, you can go afterwards. So I can show you how it's done. So, as you are all aware, the Scripps National Spelling Bee just wrapped up. Now the stiff competition yields words that a lot of people spell incorrectly. So, gentlemen, I need you to spell your state's most incorrect, like, common word. I'm also not going to dox you, so I'll just say the word. But also, just for fun, I misspelt Minnesota's most common misspelt word, which was kindergarten. I'm dumb. So I'm gonna start how I wrote it down on the list. Pat, you're gonna go first. Your word that you have to spell is jewelry.
Okay. Jewelry. JEWELRY. Jewelry.
That is correct, Pat.
Oh my god, I would have gotten that wrong.
I would have gotten it right. Hey,
I was actually a finalist in my county for the scripts when I was in like 8th grade or whatever year it was. So that makes sense. I've been
Insane.
really good at spelling my whole life. So I'm proud of myself for
Nice.
representing my state.
Way to go, Pat. Miles, you are up next.
Oh, I'm so bad at spelling.
Your
Let's
word,
do this.
your word is becoming.
What?
I'm not gonna dox your state, but apparently this is a hard word where you live.
Can you give me the definition?
Yes. This is really becoming of you, Miles. Please answer the question.
Okay. I didn't know if it was like that or like,
To
damn, that
become
ass is nice.
something.
I'm a becoming. You know what I mean?
Ah,
oh really? Yeah, that would
Okay.
be scripts.
Yeah. When I'm not gonna go there.
Okay. B-E C O M-I-N-G.
That is
becoming.
correct. That is correct,
go.
Miles. Let's go.
That's so easy.
Dang.
I know, but I'm nervous.
Wait, if you're doing it by state, so do you have a word for me?
I do. I have your most misspelled word from your country.
Mm.
Kat, you are up next. Your
Oh,
word
God.
is promise.
PROMISE.
That is correct,
No?
Kat.
Well, I was disappointed in my state for becoming, but like,
I know. Oh my God!
Jay,
Can you tell I'm from the South?
yeah.
Like,
For Jay, I used your hometown state, not your current one. So
Oh,
your word is kernel, like the popcorn.
oh, okay. So KERNEL.
That is correct. We are 4
oh
for
my god,
4.
it's a K.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It's a
This is
K.
gonna
What
be
is-
so bad.
What was
Thank you.
his current states? Did you have
It was
written down?
also becoming. So I'm not gonna
okay.
say where you guys live, but apparently you guys are struggling up there.
We're close to each other.
All right, Johnny, your word is yacht.
I know this.
YACHT.
We went 5 for 5 for the what do you say
Okay.
anime show. I mean,
No.
good job,
We
boys.
can read. We can read.
Good job. Well, I went 5 for 6 because I spelled kindergarten KINDERGARDEN.
Gets it wrong.
Wow.
Because you know it's German.
Yeah,
I bet.
so I got that wrong. So technically 5 for 6, but I'm proud of you guys. That's what matters. So Miles, you're up next.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. Imagine if I had spelled becoming wrong on the fucking podcast.
Oh, I would have made a YouTube short of it.
um.
I would have re-downloaded TikTok for that.
Okay, so I have like you guys can answer either one or both if you have a quick answer for this, but I want to know a show that you went into that you thought you would like, that you didn't like, and a show that you went into thinking you wouldn't like, that you did like for that. And so we'll start with Kat going in order here. But Kat looks like he's not ready yet. So Johnny, how about you?
Alright, sure. So for a show that I thought I would like that I didn't like, Haruhi, just because of the Endless Eight, that completely and utterly insulting excuse of an anime. And so for a show that I thought I didn't like that I did like, I guess I'll go ahead and say.
Haruhi, the movie, because you already didn't like the first. Sorry.
I mean, yeah, but like, okay, that's cheap. So I'll go with JoJo's because I think, like Kat, I watched like the first part and I thought it was kind of mid, but then like part 2, I enjoyed it more and more. So like as I kept watching it, it kept getting better and better. So I guess for me, that's a show that like I thought I wouldn't like at first. I thought it was like like. I guess the way that Pat describes is like way too like Americanized or whatever, but I don't know. I ended up really enjoying it.
There you go.
Awesome. And Pat, you're up next.
I guess I would throw Akira in there. That's kind of cheating, just because we've already kind of talked about it as my show that I didn't like as much as I thought I would going into it. because I expected to think that it was like instant classic 10 out of 10. Maybe another answer would be The Land of the Giant Insects. I expected it to be more interesting than it ended up being, which it really was just like a gore fest that wasn't even that gory. It was more just like a butterfly sucks the blood out of a girl, and then that's cool. Like that happens. Like no big deal. A show I expected to not like that I really, really did like.
Okay, so a show that I thought that I would enjoy, but I did end up enjoying. I'm gonna go with a currently running seasonal with My Home Hero. I thought I would enjoy that, but definitely
Same.
not. And then, yeah, I don't have really. I don't really have a show that has surprised me yet. I would like one though.
Okay. You just know when you know. Pete,
Honestly, maybe review. Maybe review Starlight. I like
Okay,
that
cool.
a lot more than I thought I would.
Rainbow season 2. No, I'm kidding.
Third time
Pete,
you made that joke today.
what do we got?
I'm gonna cheat a little bit just because the show that I didn't think I was gonna like, but then like loved. I'm gonna say Berserk. Just because I thought that I would like it. I didn't think I would get 4 tattoos of it. Literally like my favorite thing of all time. And then the show that I thought I would like that I didn't like. To me, that sticks out is Bungo Stray Dogs. Did not enjoy that show at all. And everything on paper, it seems like I would really enjoy that show.
Watch the second season. It's so much better.
I'm busy.
And finally, we're back around to Cat.
All right. So a show that I thought I would like, but I really did not like, is Baki. I thought that I would like it because it was martial arts, but I didn't like it because it was very overdrawn and very anime-esque. I have given it a higher score than I had it before because and then a show that I thought I would not like, but ended up liking a lot was Data Live. Really weirdly enough, I thought I would hate that show, and it ended up it was better than I expected.
I like those answers. You and Pete had really good answers because Bungo Stray Dogs for me, I also thought.
Yeah, on text it has a lot of good stuff. Okay,
Yeah.
that is my question. Who is up next?
I guess it's me. So, all right, let's see. Pete, you
Up.
regularly say that you regularly say that you have better taste than most people in the anime community. So, what anime do you like that most of the anime community finds terrible?
Ooh.
Oh, I know one for Pete.
I know one. So I'm a big fan of just like the concept of the show. If they just execute what they're trying to do, then I like it. One that really sticks out to me is Aho Girl or Dumb Girl.
Yeah.
It's just a show about a dumb girl, and that's exactly what happens to it. And I think it has like a 6.5 on Mal. I think I gave it an 8. I think it's really funny. That's my answer.
All right. Pat, you are an old anime connoisseur, notorious for nominating old anime that was seen as a classic, only to be criticized during Watch Club. What calls you to older anime?
Just people who talk about it. I don't know. The fact that there are shows that people still talk about, I think 20 years after airing, is enough for me to make me curious. I guess maybe part of that was listen to another podcast called AAA or Anime Acts Anonymous, who talks a lot about some of the shows that we've nominated. So like Escaflowne and what do you call it? Now and then, here and there, you know. So I'd say I'm willing to take the risk with some of the older stuff too, because if it came overseas, the fact that it made it overseas is a sign that there has to be something going on that makes it compelling, I would argue, or you would hope, I should say. And then the other fact is that people still talk about it later on. That would be my answer.
Miles, you're the bully of the Discord, known for taking anime that other people have nominated, re-upping them only for them to win. So why haven't you pursued a career in politics, and why is the reason based off your love of being the only white dude that doesn't confuse?
Okay.
That's the best question.
I don't think I can adequately answer that question.
Plead the fifth.
I don't know, man. When I guess this is sidestepping it a little bit. When I was younger, I really wanted to be a lawyer, which is a lot like being a politician. And then I met a lawyer, and then I decided that wasn't for me because they were bragging about how they got people off for DUIs that they knew they committed. And I like, while I like arguing and like being right and stuff, I like doing it for fun for things about anime. I don't like getting criminals off or being a criminal myself. That is why I am not a politician.
Fair enough. All right, Jay. So, on November 15th, 2021 at 11:32 p.m., a regular contributor of the podcast, Machko, asked you to find furry art of Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter for her. In the same exact minute, you posted a picture of Hisoka as a furry fox, licking blood off of a playing card while looking to the left seductively. Are you a furry? And if you are, what stage are you?
I would not. This is wow.
Hey Pat, why do you like older shows? Hey Jay, are you a fucking furry? Like
I would not.
Oh my!
I don't remember posting that, first of all.
You're trying to
But I would-
expose him?
It was
I would
other
choose-
Jay.
No, it was actually you. I looked you up on Discord. I have it. Mako asked it at 11:32 p.m. At the last second of 11:32 p.m., you posted that picture. I have facts. I have sheets.
Pass the receipts.
Okay, I am not a furry. At least I wouldn't say so.
Cat legit called me the bully of the Discord and then just asked Jay this question.
I do find like there are aspects of it that I find interesting. Like I think having an animal that you identify with is something that most people have. Like that's why animal motifs are a thing. I would take. You know what? I will have a moment of vulnerability for a second and take this down and reveal this hole in the wall that I've been covering up. I did not make this. This is not my room. This is a fucking thing that was made for me and my girlfriend with a possum and a raccoon. I love possums. I identify with them. I would not necessarily call myself a furry who would want to dress up in like a possum fursuit or something like that. As to why I was able to post that,
It was on your
a
hard drive.
cursory Google will reveal that if you just type in Hisoka furry, that's like the second image that pops up.
It's the first
So,
image.
I rest my case.
And lastly, Johnny, you have a very cute dog. Comes in
Are
Thank
you a
you.
fairly
furry?
regularly. So I wanted to ask you a very normal question. What is your favorite dog treat, and what is your dog's favorite human treat?
My favorite dog treat would be whichever one that Pete's mom feeds him.
Man. Just,
Wow.
just
I'm
terrible.
sorry.
at
We
dogs.
tried
That was terrible.
just the
I
I was
worst.
on a roll.
Can we get
Can
a
we
minute?
try
I was
again?
on a roll.
Okay, fine.
Can you try
Okay,
again?
true story. True
Come
story. I
Oh,
actually
shit.
have tried my dog's treat once. And you know what? It was okay. It was like dried beef jerky. It tasted like drywall, but it was like edible. And for my dog's favorite human treat, I don't know, he kind of just eats everything we feed him. But I guess I'll just go with something basic like steak. Because, you know, like every time we have steak, my family makes an effort to like leave a little bit of it unseasoned so we can cook it for him, but he just fucking devours that shit in like 2 seconds. So I guess, yeah, there we go. That's his favorite human treat.
The correct answer was pepperoni, by the way, for your favorite. But yeah,
What's
I
the
like
the
that.
bacon? What's the bacon bits? Dogs don't know it's not bacon. Love that
Yeah.
stuff.
Megan.
That's what my mom.
bacon
Feeds,
strips.
that's what
Bacon
my
strips.
mom feeds me.
bacon
Oh,
strips.
that's so I should have said that. Okay.
Mhm.
Johnny, it is your
Alright,
turn.
let's just move on. Okay, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna move on to my question. So my first question is gonna be for Miles, and as we know, Miles has got a reputation on the server for hating children in anime,
Mhm.
specifically ones that are missing a few bits here and there. So my question for Miles is, if you had to kill one child from any anime, which one would it be? And you can't make an excuse to say like teenager. It has to be like an actual child.
Okay. First off, holy shit.
Yeah, this is a really bad question.
This is well.
Yeah,
I think it's kind of fun. Okay. Can I ponder this while you ask other people their question because there's so many
Okay,
children
you got a
that-
lot of options. Okay.
that- yeah, that
I
deserve
gotta
it.
say, I got a
Um,
simple one for Cat. What's your favorite cat girl in anime? This is an easy one.
Uh shit. Um, let's see. Honestly, I think it would probably be the cat girl from Mushoku Tensei.
Which one is that?
The big one with abs.
Gillishi or something like that.
Gilishine.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Good choice.
Yes.
Good choice. All right.
Squeeze my head like a watermelon, please.
All right.
Okay,
Peter.
nice.
What's up, girl?
Peter, in less than 10 seconds, name an anime character with a forehead bigger than you.
Takagi.
Oh yeah,
He's got him
You know
there.
what? You're right.
All right.
You got it.
that's on
Shut
Johnny.
the shit right in the
You
gut.
got it. Miles, you have your answer, or do I keep going?
Keep going.
Okay. Jay, we know that one of your favorite anime is Golden Kamuy, and there's that famous scene of the big CGI bear who, you just want to give that thing a big old hug.
Mhm.
So my question for you is if you had to fight one CGI monster in anime, which one would it be?
Ooh, I like
I
that.
would probably pick the giant turkeys that they ride in Kamikatsu now. Like, there's a lot of CGI monsters in that show.
There
though.
is.
I'd also probably pick the car from Link Click. I think I can.
Yes.
Like, are you
Car.
picking those because you think like you have a chance at beating them, or do you think that, or is there no?
Oh, I know I can beat a car. I've
Yeah.
gotten into a couple car accidents, and I like the cars were totaled, but I survived. So like, I think that power scaling wise, that puts me at least car plus level.
Yep.
And if you
Are
scale
CGI
that, like,
cars and regular cars on the same level?
I mean, yes. For the sake of my agenda, yes.
So I like
Okay.
that you pondered that, because as if you could have come up with like a real answer for that terrible question.
I just picture you ever play like Street Fighter 2 and there's that bonus round where you have to like
Yeah.
beat up a car. That's why I pictured Jay versus a car in Street Fighter 2.
Yeah, but like
That
instead of
second
being in the
one.
background, it's just like 3 polygons of CGI.
You have
Amazing.
60 seconds to defeat this car. Go.
All right, Pat. My question for you. So, we know that you have a hatred for psychics, psychic
Yes.
powers. Not just in anime, but in all parts of media. So, my question for you is, what separates being a psychic from being like a magic user, like someone that uses magic in anime?
I would argue that, well, when I like magic used in anime, it is usually very clearly defined what the limits of that magic is, or that the power system is more clearly defined. What frustrates me about psychics is how poorly defined a lot of the times the powers are, and how it can be very often used as a cop out or a way to a deus ex machina of sorts for a character to just get out of any situation, because it's so hard to clearly define or show a person's psychic powers. And I think a great example of that would be like Stranger Things, to use a non-anime example. In Stranger Things, 11 just goes, spoilers, 11 just goes rah and shoves, and suddenly she's able to go from just pushing a box lightly to literally slamming someone into the wall and breaking it. And it's like, well, so we obviously see she went through mental stress, she's bleeding out her nose, whatever, but like what was the big change for her? What, like, how did that's what frustrates me the most. I would say with psychics is that it's not super clearly defined what they're capable of, how they evolve, and also it's so boring watching psychics fight a lot of the time too, because they're just sitting there like staring at each other like chibios, and I it frustrates me. So yeah, that's my answer.
Just a reminder, he hasn't watched Mob Psycho.
Or
Yeah,
JoJo.
no, I haven't.
Yeah.
Or
All right, Miles,
JoJo's.
do you have an answer, or would you rather not say?
I got you. Suika from Dr. Stone. I will not elaborate.
Nice. Love it.
Love that answer.
Jesus
Oh, that's cool.
Christ.
That's brutal.
That's
I love that.
kind of messed up.
Wait, well, in the watermelon or out of the watermelon?
With the watermelon on.
Oh, so you do like a Gallagher thing.
Oh. God.
Oh,
What the fuck?
I gotta oh man.
All
I gotta
right,
write this
so that
adults
is-
only episode.
Smile and look at the
See,
roses.
well,
Smile away, boys.
he does live up to his reputation. All right, Pat, what do you got for us?
Okay, I wrote 3 different questions, but I think I'm gonna just stick with one of them, for everybody, and that is, What is one change, and this is one singular change that you would make to any show that you've watched that you think would instantly change it to a 10 out of 10 from whatever score you currently have it at? So, Jay, why don't we start with you just to keep the pattern going?
Oh man. Oh, easy one. I'll steal Miles. If they kiss at the end of Birdie Wing, that will change it to a 10.
There you go. All right, so it hasn't happened yet, so we don't know if it needs to be changed yet, but I like that. That's good. That's good. All right, Pete, what about you?
Ooh, yeah, I would change the ending of Sing Yesterday for me. Yeah, that show could have been something fantastic, and then they just absolutely ruined the final ending.
I disagree, but fair enough. That's
It dropped its mouse score over a point.
Yeah, people are sensitive. It's okay. Miles, what about you?
Incoming Violet Evergarden spoilers, so I just want to do that. But if the major had been dead, that would have gone a long way to making that show a 10 out of 10 for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You still haven't watched the movie yet, have you?
No, I haven't.
You should. But yeah, fair enough.
Is
Kat,
he alive?
maybe.
Maybe.
Kat.
I think one part of Radiant Season 2, if they were able to, because I have it at an 8, if they were able to change the main character's voice actor, I think that would make it go to a 10.
You've honestly answered this better than some of the other people because you've actually given one specific thing, so I respect that. But really, like, the voice actor dropped it 2 points.
I don't
want to
spoil my answer. Like,
no, I know, but like, well, Miles answered it pretty fairly too.
So the reason why is because the main character has an extremely high voice. Like, it's kind of like a mixture between Asta from Black Clover and like Naruto in dubbed Naruto. Like, it's a mixture between those two, and I wish it had like a little bit more of a lower voice and not as much of a shearing voice. If it had that and still had good delivery, I would love it.
Fair enough. I like that. And Johnny, what about you?
This one's an easy one if Rudy wasn't a pedophile.
true.
That's a
True.
really good answer.
A really
Yeah, just to erase the first 5 minutes of Mashoko Tensei, right?
it's
And
like-
then
Or at least put it in a way that like makes him borderline irredeemable for the first 12 episodes.
I like that. That's
or
a really
that,
good
yeah.
answer. No, that's a really good answer. All right, Jay, I think you get the honor of asking the last questions here.
All right. So, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, stands are a physical manifestation of a fighter's fighting spirit and life force, typically named after either a color and a tarot card, an Egyptian god, or a European, American, or Australian musical act. So my question is simple for you, gentlemen. What would be your stand? For instance, mine would be named after Just Like Heaven by The Cure.
Okay.
Pete, you're up first.
Yeah. How about my stand would be called Clear as Blue.
That's a good stand name, actually.
Clear as
Yeah.
Blue. And was there another part of that question? I forgot. Sorry.
Oh.
All right.
You can,
Cool.
if you have an idea of what powers it would have, you can include that, but don't stress about it.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Clear as Blue is my answer.
Miles, you're up next.
Sure. Mine would be called Blank Space by the named after the best Taylor Swift song of all time. I think it embodies me in multiple ways. Unsure what the power would do. Perhaps it removes something, creating a blank space, or it teleports the person into a blank space for a little bit where they have no senses or something like that.
Hopefully they're not like super obvious to where you can tell what they do based on that.
Okay, in that case, maybe it makes a bunch of dogs appear for no reason.
Ooh. Oh, I want to change
That's-
my answer now.
Oh, you want to do Who Let the Dogs
No,
Out?
I want to do Milkshake.
Okay.
And it's just a
what's your
bunch of
stand power?
boys appear.
Okay.
Oh,
It attracts men.
It attracts men.
Fair enough.
And they are thirsty.
Cat, you're up next.
I think I'm gonna name mine after Strawberry's Wake from the band Dance Gavin Dance. I think I would call it Red Wake, and every time I'd use that stand, I would raise somebody's blood pressure. Because I mean, after a while,
Yeah,
you're gonna have a heart attack.
Can you stop doing it to me? Thanks.
No.
Yeah, Johnny, you're up next.
For my stand, since usually stands are named after like band names from American stuff, and I don't know a single one, I'm gonna go back to what I know, which is my people. So I'm gonna be naming my stand after a very special dessert ice cream, and it's gonna be a bean. My stand's name is gonna be Bean Chi-Ling, and yeah, my power is just I just throw ice cream at people, and occasionally John Cena pops up and like screams at them or something. I don't know. I couldn't think of anything. God
I
damn,
was
why are you
waiting
making me
for
do this?
like
Brian
I'm-
Adams. That's all.
yeah, I was for sure like waiting for like maybe like Justin Bieber or something, and then
Or Drake.
yeah, that's
Oh right. Wait, that's for
Black
Canadian.
Savage?
I forgot.
Yeah.
I forgot we existed for a second. My bad.
No, Johnny's basing his off Brian Adams. His stand is just called 69. Oh, and you can think about what it is.
And
No,
Pat,
what is that Drake song? Sorry, it's like the started from the bottom. Yeah, I'm just like
That's the
I just-
song.
It's in fact the name
Yeah.
of the song.
Pat, round
yeah.
us
So
out,
that's the name of
please.
my stand. But instead of like getting up, I just stay at the bottom
Yeah.
like forever.
All right, mine would be Dancing Queen. No, just kidding. I think that I'd probably go with Feel Good Inc. And I don't know. You could turn that into a few different things. I think, but maybe I just make everyone too high to even like think about what they're doing in like a certain area as like an aura.
Well,
Um,
would not
yeah.
be defeating Dio, is what I'll say.
yeah, fair. I who needs to defeat Dio?
None
if
of us
it-
are beating him.
Yeah,
But yeah, there we go. I think that's everyone's questions
Yeah.
then. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah. If you made it this far, thank you. That was a long ass episode. If you want to support us, the best way to do so, like, comment, subscribe, leave a review on whatever platform you're watching or listening to us on. Next week for Watch Club, we are doing Innuo. Cannot wait for that. Otherwise, for our non-Watch Club content, in 2 weeks, we will be looking forward to the summer season and be doing our preview. So look forward to that. Otherwise, thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Peace.